We're back with Greg Hinz, and we've been talking a bit about some of the reasons that we have problems with Bruce Rauner and some of the questions about Rauner that still hang out there in this campaign. A guy who's been in politics for a long time is Pat Quinn, and I sat here 4 years ago and said, he really is the anti-Blago. He lives in that little house on the west side. We'll never see the FBI come in and slap handcuffs on him at 6 a.m. I've been very disappointed by the revelations in Bill Howland's audit about that anti-violence program. To some degree, I've been disappointed by the governor's response. I don't think that we've had a full, frank discussion about what he really was doing there.
Now, I think it is fair to say, Mike, that Pat Quinn kind of views himself as still the reformer who is railing against the world, even though he's now the man in the big chair. And if he does it, well, it can't possibly be corrupt because I'm doing it. I mean, my favorite example was from 4 years ago when within a 2 or 3 day period, he gets a huge union endorsement. It was very helpful to him and approves a contract for that very union. I mean,
and a contract we couldn't afford.
If that's not an apparent conflict of interest, I don't know what.
Well, on the other hand, in a state where we've had so many Pauls go to prison and former governors, and some of them certainly gilding their bank accounts, Quinn is not a money guy. He's not a guy who's ever done that. I mean, he talks about still paying off the college loans to put his sons through college. He's
not a money guy, at least personally, but how can I say it? If you swim in a dirty lake, it's hard to stay completely clean.
Right.
The whole political culture here, one degree or another, affects everybody who's involved.
And here's what I want to do. You know what? I'd love to have the governor and Rauner come in and just have one topic: reform, ethics reforms, things that the state of Illinois needs to do, the next administration needs to do to assure the voters, the public, the taxpayers who are in line for some big tax increases, not least because of these public employee pensions, that things are on the up and up. Are there some reforms that you specifically would like to see?
Oh, sure. I mean, the reform that I want, it'll never happen because voters don't want it, it's all public finance. You run for office, you do it on the public's dime, because when you give money in politics, it buys something, invariably.
All right, now, we do have a form of that's taking place in this campaign in terms of Bruce Rauner
right.
privately, paying for it, and the argument's been made by these billionaires in other states that, hey, I'm not really dependent on campaign contributions. We had a guy up in Wisconsin
and there's
make that argument.
And actually, there's probably a little bit of truth to that. At least I just have to look at him to see if there's any conflicts of interest rather than whoever he's funding. But he's also taking a lot of money from other people. So it's Quinn.
All right. Let's return to Rauner again, because he's the guy that we know the least about. In terms of what you've seen in the way that he's run his business empire, are there any skills transferable there to running the state of Illinois?
One would think so. If the state of Illinois is like a hydra, 100 different arms all headed in different directions, and you can't control them all. So some experience running a big, complex organization.
What do you think we're going to see?
But
he's going to be dealing with a majority General Assembly that's Democrat.
But every time he comes back and says, "I didn't know that this unit was doing that," or this division was doing that, whatever.
We just had some criminal indictments, and now he's saying, "Oh, they were rogue
employees." Every time that
employees.
happens, that argument that I know how to run a big, complex organization gets a little weaker.
Knocks a little chink in there. What about the argument that he's been slammed by the public employee unions, by the teachers unions, that if this is what's needed to balance the state budget, I'm ready to take a government shutdown? I mean, that doesn't seem crazy to me. That seems to be a good bargaining point with a majority Democratic General Assembly.
It could be. We'll see if it actually happens. Easy to say.
So how, if you were a Governor Rauner dealing with Mike Madigan and John Cullerton in a majority Democratic General Assembly, what's the strategy?
The strategy is to move and bob and weave and try to figure out what's really going on. To not lock yourself in. I think you've already seen that with his tax plan, which actually is far more generous on the tax raising side than I would have suspected. And if I read the fine print right, they're going to go a little further there. That's one way you deal with the Democrats.
Okay.
Cut their services.
You know, I have been surprised. I was surprised too. I mean, he has said let's close the big oil loophole that Governor Quinn has been trying to do for years, and the General Assembly hasn't gone along with that. Extending extending the service tax, the sales tax to services is another piece of that. But we have 5, 6, maybe $7 billion by the time the next governor comes along in unpaid bills.
Well, the financial problems are there. They're not going to be easily solved. There is no magic wand. But to solve them requires if you're going to lead a political organization that the state of Illinois is, you got to be a pal. You got to be able to sit down and shoot the breeze and slap backs and pass the booze, just like Jim Thompson did, for instance.
Well, we know that Rauner can do that. For all of his stuff, I'm not a pal. In fact, he's played that game for years. Okay. Greg Hinz, thanks so much for joining us. I have to have you come back. Up next, there is a burning pension problem in the suburbs involving those firefighters right there. You won't believe how far in the hole these funds are. You're watching Fox 32 Sunday.